What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll start introducing you guys to WebDriver. This is gonna be the first video in the series. I'm actually not gonna be marking these videos though, because there's probably gonna be a lot of different things that I'll want to cover, and I don't want to like go back and like renumber like all the videos if I miss something. So each video will answer some questions related to that particular video, and whatever you guys are interested in, you can watch a particular video to that relates to your question. Now I will create a playlist in the order that I think this videos should be watched, because if you're a complete beginner, you probably need some kind of proper structure to this videos, so you don't go flying all over the place from like more beginner tutorials and then to more like advanced, because if you skip some tutorials in between, you'll probably get lost. So with that said, this video is gonna start off with the most basic things that a QA engineer would need to create automation scripts, and we're talking about WebDriver specifically here. So this video is mainly gonna focus on HTML tags and how to use WebDriver to interact with HTML tags, and how to find different properties and how to find different selectors to use when creating scripts. So you do need to have WebDriver installed, you do need to have Chrome driver installed. If you don't have neither one, I do have videos on how to install both. Make sure to check them out. And we're going to be using PyCharm to write our code in. So if you don't have that, I also have a video on how to install PyCharm. Feel free to use a different program to write the code in. It's up to you. This is just a personal preference. But let's go ahead and open up PyCharm here and create our project. Now everything from here on is going to be done inside this project that we're going to be creating. So I'm going to create this project on desktop. I'll call it WebDriver Tutorials, and I'll use Python 2.7 for this project. So this is our root directory. Inside this directory, let's create our first Python file. I'll call it actually let's call it selector tutorial. So we're gonna use Google for this. But before we go to Google, let's actually import the WebDriver and import the by package as well. So I'm going to say from Selenium, I want to import WebDriver, and then from selenium.webdriver.common.by, I want to import by. Okay. And now here we're gonna create our driver, and we're gonna reference WebDriver Chrome because we want to use the Chrome driver. So all of our scripts will actually spawn Chrome browser, and that's where all of the action is gonna take place. So now we're gonna say driver get. This call will basically open whatever URL we pass in inside here. So we're gonna pass in the Google URL. So I'm gonna say https google.com, and that's gonna open the Google page. Now if we open the Google browser and go to this URL, we see this page, and this is the exact page that we're gonna see once we run our script there. So once we're on this page, we want to actually interact with some of these elements, and this is probably the simplest page of all. So let's see on how we can probably pass some text to this field over here, how we can type something in here. We're gonna right click and we're gonna go to inspect. We're gonna click on inspect, and I'm actually gonna move this down. I prefer this view better over the other one on the side. So this is the HTML tag, the input tag for this text field. And you can see that different attributes inside this tag actually change depending on the status of this element. So if I click away from it, you can see that the class value actually changes, right? When there is nothing inside here, the class value is GSFY, but if I click inside, it actually appends this, which tells me that this element is now quote unquote active, I guess. So there's a bunch of different elements on bunch of different attributes in this HTML element. We can see that it has class, it has ID, it has name, it has some other attributes that we can't really use in Selenium without writing the XPath. And by the way, this video is not about XPath. We're gonna cover XPath in the next video. This video I just want to cover the pre-made WebDriver elements that you can sort of use. So let's start off with the ID for this element. So I'm gonna copy this guy, just double click on it, and I'm gonna copy this guy. So first thing I want to do, let's go back to our script. So I'm gonna say driver find element by, and over here we have different selectors that we can use, and we're gonna use ID for this one. And I'm just gonna paste the value that I copied, and then I'm gonna do dot send keys, and this basically will print whatever, or not print, but set or pass in the text that I pass in inside of this quote. So let's just say ABC, right, ABC, and let's go back to that page, because so now we know how to use ID, but we have multiple selectors that we can actually use on this page. Well, on the page, yes, but we have multiple by selectors that we can use, right? So I want to actually show you how it would look like to use, for example, the name or tag name. So we'll leave this as ID, and then we're gonna go back to this page and we're gonna take a look at what else we can do here. So now we know, well, actually, yeah, now we know how to pass in the text to an element. Okay, we know how to find element by ID, and we know how to pass text to that element if that element accepts some inputs, like this element does, because it's input tag. Now let's say I want to get an attribute from an element, right? So we have logo over here, which has tag, HTML tag as image. Now inside this image we have different properties. We have alt, which is alternative text. If this image would not appear, it would say Google instead of this picture. It has height, it also has ID, it has source. So we actually can get all of this information inside this tag. Now, how would we do that? Well, let's go back to our script. Let's say I want to get this source link for this logo. So I want to print out what the source is. So that's what we're going to try to do here. So we're going to say print, and then we're going to use our driver to find element by. This time we're going to try to find it by using the tag name. And tag name is img. Okay, stands for image. Now here we're going to say dot get attribute. Now this get attribute you can use to get any attribute inside this HTML tag. But for me, I'm interested in this src attribute. So that's exactly what I'm going to say. I'm going to say src, that's what I want to get. Now, so we can get the src. Now let's see. You're probably not going to be using it to get src much unless you want to validate that the image that's shown on the page is coming from the correct source. More often you're going to be using this call to get the attribute for different elements, maybe such as buttons or labels. Now we don't have any labels on this page, but we do have this buttons. So let's try to get text from this button. Oh, actually, let's get it from both of these buttons. So we're gonna inspect this button and we're gonna see what we can use. Here we actually have name property, which we haven't used yet. So let's go back to our script and we're gonna say print. We're gonna reference our driver, and again we're gonna find element by. This time we're gonna try to find it by name. And the name of this button is btnk. So that's the value that we're gonna paste right in here. Now let's take a look what we can use here. So this particular button does not have text. It has a value though. So we're gonna get the value attribute for this button. So we're gonna say get attribute value, and then we're gonna do kind of the same thing for what I pressed right now is control wait, what did I press? Control enter? No, control S, control D, control D. You press control D, it's gonna copy the line that you have selected over to the next line. So so over here we're gonna inspect this button now, and let's see, the name for this button is btni. So we'll just go in here, put btni, and also we're gonna get the value attribute for this button, because it has the same tag with the value attribute in here. Feel free, by the way, to play around with like whatever attributes you want. As you guys go through this tutorials, I do encourage you to try out different things. You know, question like, what if I do this, and then see what happens. Because if you actually try different things, you know, the information is gonna sink in much better than if you watching this tutorials and not really doing anything on your own. So that's that. Now, so we're gonna type something, right? We're gonna type ABC in here, and here we actually have a problem, because you can see that when we type ABC, it doesn't really go to the next page, but we actually wanted to do the search. So we want to click this Google search button once we type something into the search, and then we got the value from these buttons to see like what text is displayed on the buttons. We actually want to go ahead and execute our search. So how do we click on this button? Well, if you go inside our script, this is the button that will actually do the Google search. So if we copy this code over here, we don't want to get the attribute now, but now we want to actually click this button. So we're going to do .click. I'll tell you right now that this is actually going to fail. The reason being is that when we type something in to the text field here, the button is going to be abstracted. This is a different button that we see here. Actually, we can inspect that button and you can see it's a different input button here, and it does not have the name that this button has, right? This is the name of this button. The other button did not have that. So but regardless of that, let's run this script and see what happens this far. I just right click and said run. So it spawns Chrome driver, goes to Google, types ABC, and it tried to click this Google search button, but it wasn't able to click it. See here, it tells me that it is not clickable, and that's what was expected because that button is actually behind that suggestion drop down. But let's take a look at what happened before that. Before that, we actually printed out the image source attribute, and this is what we got for the source attribute, right? So google.com images branding Google logo 2x. Let me actually close this. Now if you go back to this page and we check it, it seems to be legit, right? Images branding Google logo 2x. All right, I think that's what we got. Yep, looks like that's what we got. Well, actually no, the size is incorrect. This is a different image, probably some image that's hidden, because over here we see size 120 by 44, and here size is 272 by 92. So the image that it picked up, that our script picked up, is actually a different image. It's not this Google logo, it's some other logo. So there's probably multiple images on this page. We can see one, and there's probably a couple more that are hidden, and this image probably is not the first one in the DOM, so that's why we did not get the source for this image. In the next video, I'll actually show you how to check how many of certain elements you have on the page using the XPath, but that's in the next video. So we got the source of an image, not the one that we wanted, but we did get the source attribute. Now we tried to get the attribute value for the button, for this button, for the Google search, and we did get it. It's Google search, and then I'm feeling lucky, same thing, we got the value, and then we tried to click this button, but because the suggestion drop down was over the button, we got an exception. Now we want to probably click this button instead then, and here we have class that we can use. So I'm actually going to copy this class value, and I'm going to paste this class value in here, and I'm going to change the selector from name to class name. Now let's do some more stuff here. So say we type ABC, then we click this button, we're taken to a results page, right? To the results page. So here we have some links, and let's actually click on some links. So we're gonna say driver find element by link text, and let's use, let's use this link text. So once we land on this page, we'll actually click on this link and it'll take us to this ABC page. Now, by the way, guys, there are two different options that you have for link text. You have link text like this, and then you have this partial link text. Basically, the difference is the first one, the link dot link text, is going to search for exact match of the value that you passed in here to be the link, and then partial link text will search for the link to contain the value that you passed in here. So if I say something like this, both of this calls will do the exact same thing, I think, unless we have another link on the page that contains the same phrase. But let's try this and see what happens. Let's run it. Now this should not fail, this should actually go through. Alright, looks like it clicked ABC. So there we go. Now let's try to, so basically it went through everything, did everything, and it finished. Finished with exit code 0. Exit code 0 means everything was successful. Now let's close this page and try to do the same thing, but now using this call. It should do exactly the same thing technically, unless there is another link that has the same value. Alright, yep. So that's kind of how you interact with different elements. That's how you can click different elements. That's how you can pass certain values to the input text fields. That's how you can get certain attributes from the page, and that's how you use different by selectors. So we used ID, we used tag name, we used name, we used class name, we used link text and partial link text. Now in the next tutorial I will show you how to use XPath, and I'll also show you a tool that will save you a ton of time checking. Like, you can check the XPath before you run your script, so you don't have to run your script to see if the XPath that you created is the correct one. Now I know this tutorial was pretty long, but I kind of wanted to make it very beginner friendly so you guys kind of understand what's going on. So I'm trying to kind of go pretty slow, I think. For people out there who are more experienced, you probably don't need this, so feel free to skip to whatever video you feel like might be more beneficial to you. But if this video helped you out, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys for watching, and take care.